This happened a few months ago. I had just moved to a quiet suburban neighborhood. I thought it would be a nice change from city life. It looked safe, and the houses were pretty. Everything felt perfect for me and my graphic design work. But soon I found out that my new home had some secrets. On my third night, something woke me up. It was whispers. They were soft, coming from the house next door. I couldn't make out any words, just a low murmur. I strained to listen but ended up feeling uneasy. I tossed and turned in bed, the whispers crawling under my skin. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just my imagination or a late-night movie. The next morning, I forgot about the whispers. I started unpacking and getting comfortable. But then I saw him. My neighbor next door stood by his window. He just stared out, still as a statue. His expression hardly changed. I caught his eye, hoping for a friendly wave, but he didn't even blink. It sent a shiver down my back. I felt like I was being watched. I shook it off, thinking I must be imagining things. Days passed by, and I heard laughter when I worked late at night. It wasn't loud, more like distant giggles. I thought it was kids playing outside, but I didn't see anyone. I glanced around and realized there were no children in the neighborhood. Only older folks. Each laugh made my heart race. I was on edge, jumping at the slightest sound. One evening, I watered my plants outside. I saw him again, the same neighbor. He was there, staring out of the window. I wanted to ask if he was okay, but my feet felt glued to the ground. What if I was wrong? Something about him didn't seem right. I stood there, half wanting to run and half wanting to know what was going on. Then he spoke. It was a whisper. "Why are you there?" I felt ice in my veins. He seemed to be talking to me but then just walked away. In an instant, he vanished into the dark. I felt so alone. This quiet neighborhood was full of weirdness, and I couldn't shake that feeling. The laughter came again later that night. It filled the air, lifting my hair on my arms. I turned around, but nobody was there. Just my house and the stillness around me. My heart raced. I felt trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I stood there, confused and frightened. I couldn't get the situation out of my mind. What was going on? Why was I hearing all of this? I looked back toward my own house, and the laughter swelled again, echoing in the night air. I turned around, but this time, no one was there. The next morning, I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. I thought maybe familiarizing myself would help ease my anxiety. I hoped to see other neighbors, maybe find someone friendly to talk to. As I stepped outside, the sun shone brightly, but I felt a lingering chill. The houses looked the same as before, neat lawns and perfect mailboxes, but there was an eerie stillness to the place. I walked past the neighbor's house, the one where I'd heard the whispers. I looked over, hoping to catch another glimpse of him, curious but also apprehensive. Nobody was at the window this time. The curtains were drawn tightly, as if keeping something hidden. I made my way down the street, glancing at the other homes. I finally came across an older woman watering her garden. She looked friendly enough, so I approached her. "Hi. I just moved in a few days ago," I said, trying to sound casual. "Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Mrs. Collins," she replied, smiling. I asked her about the neighborhood, hoping for some reassuring words. She told me the basics: kids used to play outside, but not anymore. Most families moved away as the children grew up. It seemed harmless at first, but then I asked about my neighbor. "The one next door?" she said, her smile fading slightly. Well, he hasn't been quite himself for a while now. Ever since his wife suddenly," she stopped. Her gaze flicked back toward her house, as if sensing something I couldn't. I felt a knot form in my stomach. "What happened?" I pressed, but she shook her head. "It's better you don't know," was all she said, her voice dropping to a murmur. I nodded, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. I wanted answers, but Mrs. Collins had already turned away, lost in her own thoughts. I walked back home, unease settling deeper into my bones. That night, I tried to work, to focus on designs and ideas that usually flowed freely. But the whispers returned, clearer this time. They felt closer, more insistent. It was like they beckoned me to listen. I shut my laptop and stepped outside, desperate for air. As I stood on my porch, I could hear the laughter again. It was louder now, echoing from the shadows of my neighbor's yard. I felt an acute sense of fear. Should I call for help? But who would I call? The police for child giggles? Then I paused. The laughter sounded like a game, playful, almost joyous, in stark contrast to the cold silence surrounding me. I decided to investigate. The moment I stepped off my porch, the laughter stopped. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. There was no response. I ventured towards the side of my neighbor's yard, where the sounds had come from. There, I stumbled upon a small, broken swing set, rusted, untouched for years. My heart sank. There had clearly never been any children here. That's when I saw it, a flash of movement at the window. I turned, just in time to catch a glimpse of that same neighbor, staring out at me, his face nearly emotionless. The chill of dread ran through me again. I felt like I was being assessed, like I was failing a test I didn't even know I was taking. And just like that, he mouthed something I couldn't tell what. My heart raced. Then, suddenly, everything went dark. I jolted awake on the porch, the night air wrapping around me like a cold blanket. The darkness felt alive, thicker than before. I rubbed my eyes, confusion swept over me as I looked around. Had I fallen asleep? Why was I out here? I stood up slowly, heart racing in my chest. The swing set loomed nearby, a rusting skeleton in the moonlight. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. It was just a regular neighborhood, right? Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. I stepped inside and locked the door, but the laughter echoed in my ears. I shivered as I settled on the couch, desperate to shake off the unease. The whispers returned, low and lingering, wrapping around my thoughts like a vine. I closed my eyes, convincing myself that it was just the wind. The next morning, I decided to confront my neighbor. I needed answers. With a racing heart, I walked to his front door. I hesitated, suddenly unsure if I was ready for whatever lay behind it. The house was shadowed and silent, but I pounded on the door. After a long moment, the door creaked open. The neighbor stood there, his eyes glinting like shards of glass. "What do you want?" His voice was rough and low, catching me off guard. I wanted to introduce myself properly," I stammered, trying to sound brave. He stared at me for a beat too long, then stepped aside. "Come in." Against my better judgment, I stepped into the darkness of his home. The air was stale, filled with a sickly sweet smell that made my stomach twist. His living room was cluttered with boxes stacked haphazardly, as if time had stopped inside. There was something off about it, but I couldn't place what. "Do you have kids?" I asked clumsily, hoping to ease the tension. "No," he replied, his expression becoming even more closed off. "Why do you ask?" I hesitated. "I heard laughter. Last night." His eyes narrowed. "You shouldn't listen to what you can't see." Those words hung heavy in the air, striking a nerve. "What do you mean?" He leaned closer, and I felt an instinctive urge to pull back. "It's better if you don't know. Trust me." I backed away, scrambling for the door. As I left, I swore I heard the laughter again, a distant echo fading into silence. I darted back to my house, the weight of his warning pressing down on me. As I reached my front steps, I noticed something, a small, tattered doll was lying on my porch. I had never seen it before. Its eyes were wide, frozen in a permanent gaze. I picked it up, examining it closely, and felt a chill race down my spine. Then, from behind me, a voice whispered, "You shouldn't have taken that." I spun around, but the street was empty, the world still and quiet. My heart pounded. I clutched the doll tight, knowing that I was now part of something much darker than just a simple neighborhood. The sun was barely up when I returned inside, the doll still clutched in my hand. I set it on the kitchen table, feeling a mix of dread and curiosity. What was happening around me? What other secrets did this neighborhood hold? I spent the morning pacing, glancing at the doll. It felt like a bad omen, whispering warnings I didn't understand. After days of strange occurrences, my logical mind was wavering. I couldn't ignore the growing feeling that something was watching me, waiting. I needed to figure out what was going on. I grabbed my phone and called Ellen, an old friend who always gave good advice. Maybe speaking to someone familiar would ground me. The phone rang twice before she picked up. "Hey. How's it going?" she said, her cheerful tone feeling like a bright light in my dim moment. I don't know how to explain it," I said, glancing at the doll. "I think something is wrong here. It's like I'm being haunted or something." "Haunted? Seriously?" She laughed lightly, but I could hear concern in her voice. "What happened?" I told her about the laughter, my neighbor's warning, and the doll. After a long pause, Ellen said, "You need to get out of that house. Go somewhere, clear your head." Her suggestion hit me hard. "You're right. I'll go to the park." I packed a small bag and left, the doll still on the table, its gaze following me. As I walked, I kept an eye on the shadows around me, half expecting something to emerge. The park was brighter. Kids played, birds chirped, and the sun brightened my mood. I sat on a bench, taking a deep breath, trying to shake the unease. It should have been a perfect escape, but as I rested, I saw a figure lingering at the edge of the playground. It was the neighbor, standing still, watching. My heart dropped. I leaned back, pretending not to notice while counting the seconds. He seemed to be searching for someone, his body tense and still. Before I could collect my thoughts, he turned his head and met my gaze. The world around me blurred, the children's laughter fading as the air became thick. "You should have left it alone," he said, his words slicing through the air like a knife. Fear clawed at my throat. I stood abruptly, but my legs felt heavy, as if an unseen force held me back. "What do you mean?" He stepped closer, and the shadows deepened around us. "Things happen to those who pry where they don't belong." I stumbled backward. "I didn't." He raised his hand like a barrier. "You took something that isn't yours." That was when I noticed something in his hands. A doll similar to the one I had. My breath caught in my throat. "Where did you get that?" He smiled, but it was a grim, haunting smile. "It finds its way back to its owner eventually." Suddenly, the laughter returned, louder this time, echoing in my ears, drowning out the sounds of the park. I felt the ground shift beneath me. My heart raced, and for the first time, I understood that I was not just a bystander in this strange horror. Then everything went dark. I woke up gasping, the park still and silent around me, but the sense of dread clung to me like a heavy fog. My heart pounded, and I struggled to piece together what had just happened. I was still on the bench, but the neighbor was gone. The air felt electric with unease, shivering despite the warm sun. I got up and hurried back home. Each step echoed the random bursts of laughter that haunted me, twisting my stomach tighter with every sound. Where had the neighbor gone? What had I stumbled into? As I approached my house, I noticed my front door was slightly ajar. Panic surged through me. Had someone been inside? I stepped cautiously, peering over my shoulder before pushing open the door, expecting to find everything in chaos. The silence was oppressive. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" No answer. My voice faded into the empty hallway. I moved into the living room, the sunlight spilling in through the windows, illuminating the space. Everything looked undisturbed, but the doll I froze. It wasn't tea on the table anymore. My heart raced. I rushed to check all the rooms, searching every closet, behind every curtain. I felt ridiculous, but I needed to be sure. "It's just a doll," I muttered under my breath, though knowing deep down it was much more than that. Back in the kitchen, I found something on the counter. A note, folded neatly. My hands trembled as I grabbed it, unfolding it slowly. The handwriting was small and precise: "You cannot run from what you've awakened." What did that mean? I felt a chill traverse my spine. There was something more, something hidden beneath the surface, an invisible thread that connected me to the strange occurrences in this neighborhood. That I dashed to my phone, desperate to reach Ellen again. Pick up," I begged as it rang. After what felt like an eternity, she finally answered. "Hey. Are you okay?" Her voice was a lifeline. "No." I spit out my words. "I need help. That neighbor, the doll, it's all connected somehow." "What do you mean?" she asked, concern lacing her words. "There's a note, and it says I can't run." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Something is coming for me, Ellen. I can feel it." "Just breathe," she said, grounding me for a moment. "Maybe you need to go back to the park and find that neighbor. He might know something." Something pulled at me, a mix of fear and determination. "I can't stay here. I have to confront him." I hung up, adrenaline rushing through me again. Once more, I left my house, that terrible, creeping feeling settling over my shoulders like an unwelcome coat. The park was lifeless, the swings swaying gently as if waiting. The laughter had faded, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to whisper my name. That's when I saw him standing at the edge of the park, gazing out at the trees, the doll now cradled in his arms. Hope and dread intertwined in my chest as I approached. "Why are you doing this?" I called, my voice echoing off the empty landscape. He turned slowly, a knowing smile crossing his face. "You can't undo what's been done." In that moment, I knew I was right in the heart of the nightmare, and nothing would prepare me for what was about to happen next. I took a step back, the weight of his words settling heavily on my chest. "What do you mean?" I stammered, the question tasting bitter on my tongue. I needed answers, but the calmness in his eyes sent another surge of panic through me. He held the doll up, its glassy eyes staring back at me, unblinking. "This doll is a key," he explained, his voice low and smooth. "It connects all of us. You've awakened something that was supposed to remain hidden." Every instinct told me to run, but I was frozen in place. "What do you want from me?" A low chuckle escaped him. "It's not what I want. It's what you must face." He pointed toward the dense trees at the park's edge, where the sunlight barely broke through the thick canopy. "Follow me." I hesitated, uncertainty gnawing at my insides. "No. I'm not going anywhere with you." His smile widened. "You don't have a choice." Then, like a shadow, he was gone. I blinked, and suddenly, I was alone in the park, my heart racing. The air felt different, thicker somehow, charged with an energy I couldn't understand. I peered into the trees, feeling an urge to follow despite the danger. The stillness around me made it hard to breathe. With a deep breath, I stepped forward, inching toward the ominous woods. Each rustle of leaves sent shivers down my spine, but something kept drawing me closer. Just as I reached the tree line, I heard a soft, haunting lullaby drifting through the air. It tugged at my memories, something familiar yet twisted. I paused, trying to place it, my hands clammy and cold. "Stay away," I called out, my voice trembling against the song. A feeling of helplessness washed over me. This entire situation felt wrong, yet I could not turn back. Suddenly, a figure emerged from behind the trees. Another neighbor, one I recognized from a few houses down. Her hair hung damp, and her eyes glimmered with a strange light. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, voice wavering as she stepped closer. "What is going on?" I demanded, feeling the ground shift beneath me. "Why is everyone acting like this?" "The doll," she whispered, glancing around as if something was lurking. "It binds us. You don't understand the danger you're in." My heart raced again. The neighbor's warning echoed in my mind. Just when I thought I could grasp what was happening, everything slipped away like sand through my fingers. Before I could respond, she suddenly turned and dashed back into the woods, her presence swallowed by the shadows. I stood there, bewildered, the lullaby fading away. That stillness returned, but not for long. From deeper in the woods, I heard a child's laughter, a sound sharp and unnatural. It shouldn't have belonged there. With the echoes of the doll's connection weighing heavily on me, I turned back toward the park. I was no longer just a curious homeowner. I was part of something sinister, and I had no idea how to escape it. As I retraced my steps, my mind raced. The laughter echoed again, now closer, and somehow even more chilling. I needed to get home, but I knew I wouldn't be able to rest until I uncovered the truth behind the doll, the neighbors, and what truly lay hidden in the park. The next day felt heavy with dread. I didn't want to go back to the park, but the mystery loomed over me like a storm cloud. As I made breakfast, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I tried to focus on the toast, but my mind kept wandering to the doll and my neighbor's warning. After I finished eating, I decided to pay a visit to my closest neighbor, Mrs. Hamilton. If anyone knew something, it would be her. She had lived on the block for years. I walked across the street, the midday sun beating down, but all I could feel was a chill running up my spine. When I reached her porch, I noticed the curtains twitching. I knocked, and the door creaked open a crack. Mrs. Hamilton peeked out, her face pale and drawn. "What is it?" she asked, sounding cautious. "Can I come in?" "I need to talk," I pleaded. The air between us buzzed with tension. She hesitated for just a moment before opening the door wider. "Okay, but hurry." Inside, the air felt stale, like it hadn't been breathed in a long time. "Do you know anything about the doll?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Her expression changed in an instant. "You shouldn't have touched it." Panic laced her words. "It's not just a doll. It has history." "What do you mean? What happened?" I pressed, heart pounding. "They say it connects those who own it to something ancient." She looked outside, almost like she expected someone to be watching. "I've heard stories about it. People get lost. Their minds change." My skin prickled. "Lost? Change into what?" "Things that were never meant to be." She shuddered, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "Every night, I hear the kids' laughter too. It's not normal, I tell you." Suddenly, I realized what she wasn't saying. "The neighbors. You all hear it, don't you?" "Yes, but you don't understand. It pulls us in." Panic flared in her eyes, and she stepped back. "You can't go back to that park. You have to leave this place." I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. "But I can't just do nothing." I shot back. "I need to know what's happening." Mrs. Hamilton grabbed my arm, desperation in her grip. "What you awaken can't be undone. You must." Before she could finish, the wall behind her trembled. A low sound rumbled through the house, something like thunder but deeper, closer. The lights flickered. "What was that?" I gasped. Mrs. Hamilton's eyes widened in terror. "It's too late, they're coming." Without thinking, I yanked my arm free and bolted for the door. That's when I heard a low, childlike chuckle, echoing through the air, sounding as if it came from right above me. I dashed outside, heart racing, and turned back toward the park. The laughter grew louder, more unsettling. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The truth awaited, and I had no choice but to uncover it. As I stepped into the grass, the ground beneath me pulsed with an energy I could almost feel. There, at the edge of the trees, stood the doll, more menacing than before, as if it were waiting for me. Suddenly, the laughter echoed again, and shadows flickered at the tree line. I knew I wasn't alone, and what I had awakened was coming to find me. I took a tentative step closer to the doll, my heart pounding like a frantic drum. The laughter bounced around the trees, a mocking echo that made my skin crawl. I could feel a weight in the air, thick and charged, as though reality itself was bending around me. Just a doll, I muttered to myself, trying to summon courage. But looking at it, I couldn't shake the dread pooling in my stomach. Its glassy eyes seemed to glimmer, beckoning me forward. I glanced around. The park was as eerie as ever. The usual warmth of the sun felt dull, muted by the chilling atmosphere. The trees swayed, whispering secrets I dared not hear. I looked back at the doll, compelled and fearful. Then, the laughter grew sharper, more distinct, cutting through the silence. It wasn't just laughter anymore, it was almost rhythmic. A chant? I felt dizzy, the ground spinning beneath me. I had to turn away. I could hear my breath quickening, panic rising in my throat. Suddenly, a flash caught my eye. I turned and nearly jumped. An old man stood at the edge of the park, a stranger in shabby clothing. His wild hair framed a face etched with deep lines, and his eyes were hollow, as if drained of life. He pointed directly at me, his mouth moving but no sound came out. "Who are you?" I called out, unsure if I wanted to hear his reply. The laughter dulled, replaced by a low hum. "What do you want?" The man stepped closer, and something inside me yelled to run, but I was rooted in place. His lips finally moved. "You must leave this place, the doll is not for you." His voice was raspy, like dry leaves scraping against one another. I took one step back, caught in a trap of curiosity and fear. "But, why? What does that mean?" In response, he pointed toward the trees, and for a moment, the shadows behind them shifted. I squinted into the dark, and something blinked. Not an animal, something watching me. "Get out!" The old man shouted, and for the first time, his voice rang clear. Panic surged through me, snapping the paralysis. I turned, sprinting away from the doll, the laughter exploding around me once more. As I raced back through the park, I could feel the air shifting, thickening with every step. The laughter merged with wails now. The sound was dissonant, like a chorus of children whispering secrets under a bed. I tried not to look back, but the shadows danced closer, pulling at the edges of my vision. When I reached the street, my legs finally obeyed my mind, and I barreled toward home, breathless. I slammed the door behind me, hands shaking as I locked it tight. Desperately, I searched my mind for a plan. I couldn't ignore this. But as I glanced out the window, my heart sank. The old man stood there, staring at me. The faintest smile twisted his face, as if he knew a secret I was about to uncover. That's when I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I spun around, but no one was there. The laughter echoed around me, louder than ever. It was a sound I would never forget, a promise that something was coming for me, and I couldn't hide. I spent the night trying to shake off the fear that had latched onto me like a parasite. I kept the curtains drawn tight, convinced that peering out would make me the next target of whatever horror had unfolded at the park. The shadows in my room felt longer, darker, and the laughter still echoed in my mind, a cruel reminder of my encounter. Morning finally broke with a muted gray light, but even that felt more like a warning than an invitation. I couldn't stay locked away, though. Curiosity gnawed at me. I needed answers. Maybe talking to someone would help. But who could I trust? I decided to head outside, feeling every step was laden with uncertainty. I wandered through the neighborhood, hoping to find my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, outside tending to her garden. Her bright flowers always lifted my spirits. I spotted her mumbling to her plants, her back turned to me. "Mrs. Patterson?" I called, my voice just above a whisper. She turned, her face creased with surprise, and then something like concern flickered in her eyes. "What's the matter, dear?" she asked, stepping closer. "You look pale. Is everything all right?" I hesitated. How much could I tell her? "I saw something strange in the park last night. Something unsettling." Her expression shifted, a hint of fear crossing her features. "You should stay away from that place," she warned. "A lot of kids went missing around there years ago. Some folks say their spirits linger." Chills raced down my spine. "Missing? What do you mean?" "Oh, you know how kids can be. Playing, wandering off." "But then there were whispers. They said you could hear them." She leaned in closer. "Laughter, just like you described. But it was never just laughter. It was a warning." My heart sank. I thought of the old man South warning at the park. What if it's happening again? What if it's coming for me? Mrs. Patterson's face paled further. "You must stay away. Promise me." I nodded, fear clutching my throat, but I couldn't shake the pull of the park. The laughter, the shadows, they were too tempting to ignore. "You know, the last time I heard that laughter was the night before," she began, but before she could finish, her expression shifted. Her gaze drifted behind me, and I turned, expecting to see someone standing there. But it was only silence. "What is it?" I asked, my heart racing again. I thought I saw something. A child, maybe?" she stammered. No, just shadows." She shook her head, as if trying to clear a fog. "You should really go inside. Maybe you could come with me?" I suggested, hoping I didn't sound desperate. "I wish I could," but her voice trailed off as she glanced at her flowers, and a hint of sorrow filled her eyes. "I can't leave them." Before I could respond, the sound of laughter echoed through the air, a familiar sound that sent a thrill of panic through my body. I knew this was no ordinary laughter. It was both playful and menacing. That's when I saw it. A figure at the edge of the yard, almost blending with the shadows of the trees. I squinted, my heart racing. Was it the old man? Or something worse? I turned back to Mrs. Patterson, but she had vanished, swallowed by the fear that encircled me. The laughter bubbled up again, more vibrant, and I took an instinctive step back. Whatever was in the yard wasn't there to play. I felt my breath hitch. The laughter was calling me, teasing me. I had to decide. Was I going to face it, or would I allow myself to be wrapped in the safety of my home once more? I knew, deep down, that this wouldn't go away until I confronted it. As I moved toward the figure, the world around me faded, and I took one last look at the empty porch. The shadows shifted again this time, they felt alive. I was stepping into something darker than I could imagine. The moment I stepped back into the park, the atmosphere shifted, as if the air itself carried intensity. The trees loomed, dark and twisted, whispering secrets I wouldn't comprehend. The laughter came again, no longer delicate and childlike, but a cacophony that sent chills through my spine. My instinct screamed for me to turn around, but I pressed forward, drawn deeper into the corridor of trees. Then, in the clearing, I saw it. The doll, where it had been all along, rested on a small pedestal of earth as if placed there purposefully. But I wasn't alone. The shadows danced around it. Dark figures darted in and out, teasing my vision like fireflies would before revealing their true nature. "Do you hear them?" It was the old man's voice, low and urgent, resonating from somewhere within the darkness. "You need to leave. They can't be ignored. It doesn't end well." Confusion gripped my chest. "What do you mean? Who are they?" But my words echoed off the shadows, lost in the cacophony of laughter. The figures became clearer. They were children, but something wasn't right. Their eyes, hollow and vacant, stared back at me with an intensity that paralyzed my footsteps. That I felt a weight on my shoulders. It was the weight of all those stories I had heard and all the warnings I had ignored. The laughter morphed into echoes of sadness, twisting into wails and cries for help. My heart raced as I thought of those words, "You cannot run from what you've awakened." Gathering every ounce of courage, I stepped closer to the doll. I was no longer preparing to confront something. I was diving into the abyss, hoping to find a tether that could pull me back. "What do you want from me?" I shouted into the darkness, my voice trembling but resolute. The figures stilled, their laughter fading to silence, and then one of them stepped forward, a girl with wild hair and dirt-streaked cheeks. "You shouldn't have come here. You took the doll. You have to leave." Her voice was a whisper, yet it echoed like thunder in my ears. "What happens if I don't?" As those words left my mouth, I felt a tremor beneath my feet, a rush of cold air sweeping through the clearing. Suddenly, the child smiled, but it was not the innocent joy I wanted. "Then you will be part of the laughter," she replied, her eyes glimmering with something sinister. That was it. The truth slammed into me. The doll was a vessel, a link between the living and those trapped in the shadows. When I found the doll, I had unwittingly awakened whatever malevolent force lay hidden here, tethering me to its wails forever. "I don't want this," I shouted, desperate to break free from this grim reality. The laughter erupted again, morphing into a violent storm of sound. Shadows loomed larger, surrounding me, pressing in like a tight noose. "Leave now." The old man's voice erupted from the darkness once more. With a flick of his wrist, the children paused, the shadows stilled momentarily. "You aren't meant to be here." In sheer instinct, I turned and bolted, sprinting back towards the exit of the park, the laughter chasing after me, echoing in the oppressive gloom. Every step felt labored, as though unseen hands were grasping at my ankles, wanting to pull me back. But I focused on the glow of the streetlights beyond the trees, a promise of safety. As I burst through the tree-line, I emerged onto the street. My lungs burned, my heart raced, but I didn't stop until I reached my front door. I fumbled for the keys, my fingers trembling, the laughter still ringing in my ears like a twisted melody. Slamming the door shut behind me, I leaned against it, heart pounding, pulse throbbing in my temples. I locked it, every lock, desperate to seal away whatever awaited outside. As silence enveloped my home, I sank to the floor, gasping, tears streaming down my cheeks. I had escaped, but the laughter still echoed within me, its haunting melody woven deep into my thoughts. Days turned to weeks, and life resumed, but the memory of that day never quite faded. I avoided looking towards the park, hoping it would forget my presence. But sometimes, in quiet moments, I could still hear that laughter in the wind, the whispers, the echoes of a dance I'd stumbled into and couldn't shake off. I never spoke about it again. The neighborhood remained shrouded in an unsettling calm, yet I noticed shadows lingering, and the passing laughter felt ominous and alive. I had escaped, but perhaps not entirely. I wondered endlessly whether I would ever truly be free from what I'd awakened. Would I ever be rid of the unwelcome echoes writ in silence, one still watching me from the shadows? I tried not to dwell on it, but then, in the quietness of night, when the world was still, the whispers returned.